How did the movie come to you?
I was finishing shooting Star Trek actually, and I've been sent the script, and I actually did an audition from Vancouver with David Leitch over Skype in some recording studio, and yeah, and then after they wanted to see me, so over a weekend I flew back to LA, and I sat down with Charlize and David, and we read a bit, and we talked about the character as well.
Did you do any research on spycraft?
Yes, I did a tiny bit, but I also watched a lot of spy movies, and but I wanted to get some sort of individuality for Delphine because it's because of the time, and because it's the 80s, it's Berlin, it's the end of the Cold War, and because she's French and she's young also in that world. I wanted to find something that was quite personal to her. I think she could have been good at her job. She left too soon, but yeah, she's very young within the profession. But I think she's also looking for a bit of excitement in the city of Berlin.
Did you look at the graphic novel source material, The Coldest City, at all?
Yes, I did actually. I bought it and I read it, and I thought, I mean, there's sort of an interesting stretch between the graphic novel, which is it inspires, the Cold War. You can feel it, very sort of grim, gray sort of world, and it fits the title so well. And our movie is very much more poppy and sort of on the cool side and aspect of the time. I watched a documentary called Lost and Sound, which the movie sort of resembled that documentary. I thought, sort of more the artsy world of Berlin at the time.
How was it working with director David Leitch?
I loved working with him. He was very, sort of sensitive to his actors, and with me, he was very curious to where I was at as an actress and as a person. He was very gentle and very sensitive. Yeah, that's what I noticed. And I didn't have to do anything that was very action driven in the part. I just have a tiny bit towards the end of the movie, in the story. But most of what I did with David was talking about the character and the story. So I had a very sort of relationship with the director as opposed to with a former man who is very much from the stunt world. And I also love the fact that he picked me for this role and not for my abilities to be able to be in action scenes, but he saw me as something else. And I love that I am in a movie where a woman like Charlize is kicking ass the way she does.
She sure does.
Yes.
Kingsman, Star Trek, The Mummy, and now Atomic Blonde, one blockbuster after another, and you're still very young. How do you handle that kind of success?
I don't know. I suppose I don't realize it. I suppose all the work that I have to put is ahead of me, and I just stay focused. I just want to do well, and I'm still learning a lot, and I have to just keep my head strong on my shoulders. And I think it's the quality within the work that will make a difference, not the quantity or the fact that they're blockbusters. I think it could be in a very smaller movie, but and I feel very lucky, and I embrace all of it. I love every aspect of this profession so far, and I'm happy to be able to do what I've been doing for like pretty consistent couple of years now.
One can truly say you are not typecast. So many diverse characters you have played. How easy or difficult is it for you to slip into a completely different person each time?
Oh, the more different those characters are from one another, the more exciting it is for me. I don't necessarily desire to play characters that resemble one another. I like the stretch of them. I like that they're different, and I feel very lucky that I've been giving so far sort of characters that are very sort of strong within their own ways, and sort of specific, and also interesting to watch to the eye, and they have like all particular stories. And it wasn't necessarily a choice. I think I've been offered and handed scripts that are quite interesting with characters that are quite unique, and I embrace all those aspects.
The movie plays in the 80s when the wall in Berlin fell. You were only 7 years old. Do you have any memories of that momentous occasion?
No, I don't, unfortunately. But my parents certainly do because I remember when I got the part, I asked them loads of questions about it and how this time like meant for them and how closely people were, even if they didn't live in Berlin, they were. It was the city had such an effervescence, and I think any place where revolution is taking place is inviting all sort of arts to bloom from, and Berlin does have that. In that documentary that I told you about, Lost in Sound, shows how much the arts were invited here, and sort of like there was some sort of freedom that was happening here in all those sense. People were exploring all sort of new ways of making music. Electronic music were starting to happen from here, and all sort of like arts in the streets were happening. People felt liberated sexually because I think there was some sort of repression that came from the political status of the place, that people went against it and were yearning for some sort of freedom, and through the art it was very much shown. And yeah, I just love that I'm a part of a film that sort of treats that world.
Espionage is such a hugely thrilling subject. Are you a fan of that genre?
I don't know if I'm a fan of the genre. I don't think I could say that, but I do find those movies quite entertaining to watch, yes.
Obviously, you had to be very fit for this role. Is that the state you're always in as a dancer, or did you have to go undergo special training?
Not for this one. I think Charlize had to go that way very much. So I just had to do the easy action scene.
Well, you had to fight for your life. Was that a difficult scene to play?
It was, because it was emotionally charged. It takes place at a moment where Delphine realizes that she's truly in danger, that this is not the fun that she was in for. And she felt that her life was threatened, and she's packing her stuff to leave. And I think when it's happening, it's at a moment where it's sort of expected, but not. Like I think she can feel something's gonna happen, and when it happens, it just hits you hard. And I felt for her, because I think she didn't realize what she was getting into entirely. She's very young and naive, and she was sort of in this city for the excitement that it had to offer, not just for her job. She was a bit distracted, I think, and her focus was a bit thrown off balance because she fell in love. But also, yeah, I think that scene was difficult because of the emotions of it, and physically it was also draining because of what it represents, and it was very violent. We learned it that morning, but James McAvoy is so good and so professional, and he made it all very easy for me, and we did that together quite well. But and David also, obviously, he knows what he's doing with that style, and I felt very comfortable.
We already have, but can you describe your character Delphine in a short way?
Yeah, Delphine is a French spy who is in Berlin, I think, for a mission, or maybe had stayed there a bit longer because of the excitement that this city has to offer, and was a bit distracted with all those aspects. But she's young, she's learning. I think if she lived a bit longer, she could have been as good as Broughton.
How was working with Charlize Theron?
It was phenomenal. She's incredible. She's really inspiring because she's gorgeous, and she's strong, and she has a voice. She's intelligent, and just seeing how powerful and strong she's in that movie physically, and the fact that she's also producing and having that sort of artistic eye, and is really all inspiring for me, who's starting in this profession and have everything to learn. So I've been with a lot of men, in movies, a lot of male actors, and more rarely with women. So I feel very privileged that I got to do this film, because I got to observe a woman in this craft closely, and that's inspiring for me.
Well, Charlize did not only star in Atomic Blonde, but she also, as you just said, produced it. And did you learn a thing or two from her?
From the producing aspect, I suppose when we were on set, she was very much focused on her character and on her on the story. I didn't see her necessarily working the producing aspect of this film. I think this happened not in front of me, but I know that she did. And looking at the movie and the end result and the choices that have been made, and I can't help but to think that a lot of it comes from her mind, and that's inspiring within itself.
Even though we have very skilled spies, the movie also shows the emotional side of each character. How important was that for the story?
I think it's very important because showing one aspect, the strong one and the cool one, is one style. But I think when you want to jump into something a bit more realistic, it's interesting to see people's vulnerability, because in reality we all have some things that make us all vulnerable. And you see that Lauren Broughton had that relationship with this man that she lost, and she find out that she lost him in the movie, but you see her dealing with that emotion and how she handles it, and I think it allows the audience to relate to the character. And I think there's nothing more interesting for an audience but to be a part of the film, and to be a part of the film is for you to put the pieces together, but also to relate and feel that those characters are also human. So that's what I think this movie provides as well.
Budapest stood in for the divided city of Berlin. How did you enjoy working there?
I loved it. I felt like I was traveling in a time capsule, because we shot there because it looks more like Berlin in the 80s than Berlin does now. And it really feels like the 80s in Budapest. Is quite fascinating. Even the people, the mentality. If you go to a market, the sort of things that they sell, the cups or the sort of the clothes, everything. It's fascinating that way. We shot just 2 days in Berlin, and that was just to capture Tempelhof.
The soundtrack is inspired by the music of that time, especially David Bowie, who spent a few years in Berlin. Mm-hmm. Can you appreciate the music of that time? Absolutely.
Yes, definitely. I remember actually in that documentary, Lust and Sound, the music aspect is very present. It's very important for the time, and David Bowie is very much present in it. And I love that the movie is wall-to-wall music, and I can't wait myself for the soundtracks to come out because I want it.